Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at WomensSportsWeeklyPod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at WomensSportsWeeklyPod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on the Les, which is our listeners' experience zone.
We have Run Club this week. We have Run Club every Thursday at the 99ers. It starts at 6 p.m. If you join us at Run Club and you say a secret word to the bartender, you will receive 50% off your first draft. And this week's secret word is vacation. Woo! It is vacation because that is where we are this week. This week, for our episode, we are posting our recent interview on the Sports and SHEnanigans podcast, hosted by Jillian Carroll Letrinko. We loved getting to meet Jillian, who is an NWSL analyst and host. She is based in Kansas City and is definitely worth a follow, along with her podcast, Sports and SHEnanigans. Let's get into it.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Sports and SHEnanigans, where women's sports and pop culture collide. I'm thrilled to be back. We did take a hiatus. We took a week off to celebrate some things, but we're back now, and we're back with a bang because we have some really cool guests to chat with today. So when I was thinking about launching this podcast, I came across a podcast called Women's Sports Weekly. And immediately I was like, okay, I need to learn what this is and learn what they're all about. And I have been listening for months now and actually have hosts of Women's Sports Weekly, Danielle and Carolyn, joining us today. And I could not be more excited. So ladies, first of all, just thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing? Each of you, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here. This is our first time getting interviewed and not doing the interviewing, so we're very excited and a little nervous.
Well, it's good to be excited. The nerves will get out of here in a second, I can assure you. But for real, just a big fan of what you guys have been doing. And so in my aim to continue to celebrate and elevate women's sports, to me, that means elevating women's sports podcasts, women's voices who are talking sports, and that certainly is both of you. So I want to start with really what's your guys' relationship with sports? I know you each have a separate relationship with sports, but talk to us a little bit about, Danielle, I'll start with you, just kind of what role sports play in your life?
Sure. So growing up, I played any sport I could get my hands on, including tried to weasel my way into football at recess when I could, even though a lot of the time the boys would not let me play. But growing up, I played basketball, soccer, and softball all throughout high school. And I feel like sports in general just have shaped who I am today. And then I continued to play basketball throughout college. Basketball always held a special place in my heart because that's what my dad played. So him and I really bonded over that. And it was really a family game for us. So that was the one that I wanted to carry forward. And not only playing my whole life, but I always loved watching sports with him or with friends. And obviously in our relationship, as an adult, I was like, I can't just let sports die here after college because I really would have gone crazy. So still play sports that I can play. And Carolyn and I always watch and talk about it. So again, it's just shaped who I am. And I think I'm a better worker in my day job for it and just in life in general. So it's been really important for me as a whole.
I don't know if you knew this, but I actually played football when I was young too. I was the only girl on the boys team. So look at that.
I love that. My parents wouldn't let me actually play. I begged and pleaded, but I'm very jealous of you.
It's just one of those things where if you have that love to be doing all the things, right? That might include football, which
Yeah.
No, I love that. Okay, Carolyn, and what about you as far as your involvement in relationship with sports?
Similar to Danielle, played a bunch of sports growing up, softball, basketball, softball, and then, did I say that?
Softball, basketball, soccer.
Softball, basketball, soccer. Oh my gosh. And then went off to college and thought I was done playing sports. I thought I was burnt out and I was like, I'm done. And then I got to the University of South Carolina and I was like, I miss it. So walked on at the University of South Carolina, played for a couple of years there. And same thing, I think sports has taught me so much about how to communicate with others and how to lead and how to also be a really good teammate. So I love that piece of it. And then after college, tried to just stay active in recreational sports. And that's actually how Danielle and I met. We met playing in a bar softball league after college, which is like the start of our love story. And then I have always watched sports, and I was always amazed that more people were not watching more women's sports, because I was like, if so many people love to watch men's sports, there's you could watch double the amount. And so I remember like way back years ago, I would write out tweets and I would be like, I don't know why no one is watching X, Y, and Z right now. Like, if you love sports, then you should be watching this game, which was a women's sports game, whether it was tennis or WNBA, whatever it was. And so that's always been my little spiel that I give to people. Like, if you're a sports fan, then you need to be watching women's sports.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And I love hearing, where both of you started with sports and through even adulthood and now your marriage. I feel like sports is you just said it, like such a backbone of your relationship, which I don't want to speak for your marriage, but it sounds
Right.
like it might be. But no, to your point, I mean, that's a great segue right there. My next kind of point was going to be when and why and how did you start Women's Sports Weekly, and what was the inspiration behind it? You kind of alluded to it a little bit, that there was so much going on that people just weren't talking about and weren't watching. But how did you guys develop your amazing podcast?
I can start and you can plug in. So we've been doing it for a year and a half now. This month will be a year and a half, which is exciting. It's sometimes hard to believe we've gone that long, and in a good way. It's just like we've been doing it. And it's funny because Carolyn has always loved podcasts, and I've gotten into them since I've known her, but not as much as she's like them. And I was actually away on a work trip, and out of the blue, she texts me and says, do you want to start a podcast? And I was like reading my phone. What are you talking about? Did not know if she was being serious or just like as a joke. And we continued to talk about it more. And she was like, all we do is talk about and argue about sports. Like, why don't we bring it to a platform and see what happens? And I feel like 2 weeks later is when we released our first episode without knowing anything. We were just like, well, let's just see how it goes.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we were having these conversations, going back and forth, arguing what's right, where should women's sports be going, what direction should it be taking. And I was like, I am a huge podcast listener, and I was like, we should start capturing this. And at the same time, there wasn't a lot of people talking about only women's sports, and we really make it a point on our podcast to only speak about women's sports. And not that we don't like men's sports, it's that we feel like there's enough media coverage of men's sports, and so we really just wanted to have that focus. And we watch a ton of sports. Like, we each have our interests in what we like to watch, and we both love to watch women's basketball, so that's kind of where we come together. But I really like to watch softball and tennis, and Danielle's really into college lacrosse. And so we were able to just bring this together and take our curiosity and put it together and talk to each other like we are as a couple, and then also talk to other people who are fans, which is what we hope comes across in the podcast.
Oh, it definitely does. I can definitely say that it does. You guys have a genuine, I would say, like, desire to share your passion. This is what I take away from when I listen, but you're also, your stuff, and you share the highlights and you share what people should be talking about. How would you kind of alluded to this, but like, what is your main goal with the podcast? It does seem like it's really something that you both just enjoy doing, but what is the goal as far as what you hope to bring to your listeners?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
So one of the things is when we first started, we were like, let's just see where this goes. We had ideas of where we wanted it to go, but realistically, we had no idea what was going to happen. Like, is anyone going to listen to us? Or is it just going to be our parents and then, no one else? So we had no idea. But over the past year and a half, we've had some really cool experiences getting to meet professional athletes, college athletes. And while that is awesome for us, I would say our main goal is bringing in people, whether they watch every sport under the sun and they're so knowledgeable, or people who just started watching or are curious about it. And I want it to be a place where all those people can come and listen and hear what we have to say and maybe form their own opinions about it and interact with us. One of the things we have is we love when people email us. We have our listeners experience zone because we want people to engage with us. And that started through DMs from people. And I would say that's one of the big goals, at least for me, is making sure it's a segue for both people who are super knowledgeable and maybe not as, and everyone can come together for the love of women's sports.
Yeah, and we're not experts at the end of the day. We like to do research. I love to do research. Like, I'm going to get in there and try to find out as much as I can, but we aren't experts. And so we really want our fans to feel like they can reach out to us and say, I agree or I don't agree with what your take. And that's totally okay with us. And I have really strong opinions, and Danielle is really good at saying, there's multiple sides to each feeling and emotion that I have, which is very true. And so I think it's a really good balance. And then we get to have that listener interaction. So yeah, the more people we can get to engage with us and speak with us, I think the better product we create, because we just have to think a little bit more about what we're saying. Or I have to think a little bit more.
It's just also nice to hear perspective, right? And so you're sharing yours, and to hear someone else, how they interpreted that and how they think about it. How has your response been? From what I've seen, you guys have been growing and growing and growing, but congratulations on 1.5 years, by the way.
Thank you.
How has that been going as far as the response and how the listeners have been really just taking to you?
I mean, we are amazed. Like we said, we started and we were like, okay, maybe our parents will listen and our siblings, and that will be great for us. And we're both from New Jersey, but live here in Denver. So it has been a nice way to stay connected with family on the East Coast. But now we sold Women's Sports Weekly t-shirts, and you actually got one, Jillian. Thank you.
I wasn't thinking.
And we were amazed. We were like, if we sell X many, we'll be happy. And then we doubled that, and then we tripled that. And we were like, oh my gosh, we are sending t-shirts out to like states we didn't even know we had people listening. And so that has been very, very just like humbling and really cool that people want to listen to us. So that has been such a cool part of our growth, and experiences that we didn't think we were going to get, like the opportunity to go and be media at the Final Four or Unrivaled. Like, those things were huge for us, and things that we never expected when we started this 1.5 years ago.
And sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
I was just going to say, I would add on to that, like, not only the t-shirts, but Carolyn's really big on, hey, if you give us a 5-star rating and reach out, like, we will send you a sticker. And I think that's opened the door for some of our listeners, because maybe someone who wasn't as likely to reach out at first is reaching out so they can get a sticker. And then since then, we have conversations with these listeners, and they're from all over, which is cool. And we'll be out in Denver, just anywhere, and people will come up to us and recognize us. So that's been interesting and a cool thing. And we're like, yes, please say hi. Like, we love it. So I would say those are just other things that have been interesting in a way of like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this, and kind of rewarding as well.
Yeah, and it's like feedback, right? It's just like, it helps you understand that people actually listen, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then your merch, which is so cool too. Okay, we are going to step aside for a quick break to hear from our sponsors. But when we come back, I need to hear more about Unrivaled. I need to hear more about some of the partnerships you guys have built. They seem so cool. So let's take a break. Stay with us, guys. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, and thanks for hanging, guys. We are so pleased to be with Danielle and Carolyn, hosts of the Women's Sports Weekly podcast. But yes, we are on Sports and Shenanigans, another women's podcast that aims to just elevate women's sports. We're hanging out on the Kansas City Sports Network, and we are powered by Cherry, a female-owned brand that wants to celebrate athletes. So today, we just heard from Carolyn and Danielle a little bit about how they started their podcast, which I love. And I've definitely been inspired by, so I'm grateful for that. But guys, one of the episodes that I caught was after you returned from Unrivaled. So Unrivaled just popped off out of nowhere, I feel like, this past season. But tell me all about like that experience. What access did you have? What were some of the highlights you took away from it? And just how cool was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was the best weekend of our lives. It really was, for like a sports fan. It was just so amazing. Do you want to take how we kind of got in?
You could take how we got in.
Okay. So we have a friend in Denver, and we have been like leaning into our Denver network quite a bit, but they reached out to us and they were like, you need to go to Unrivaled. And so we sent an email and we were like, hey, we're a podcast. We would love to come. And they were like, sure, come on down, which was so amazing. And the access we had was beyond our wildest dreams. I mean, we were there and we got to go to practices the first day, do interviews with players after the practices, and then go to the games, and then go to post-game press conferences. And again, for two people who started as fans, and I like to think that we're growing and gaining, we're gaining some knowledge along the way, but still we're fans to start. It was just a really surreal moment. And to talk to people who we talk about all the time and idolize and have so much respect for, I think was just such an amazing experience. And what Unrivaled does and what they provide, we were just so happy to be a part of it and to see it and to share it with our listeners, because I do think what they're doing is so incredibly special in the way that they're taking care of their players in the environment that they're creating. And I think they're going to be a model for what leagues can do in the future, especially as they grow.
Yeah. And we really did book that trip on a whim, because when they said you all can come, we were like, we are not missing out on this opportunity. And when we first got there, we had an idea of what to expect, but truly went into it kind of blind. Like, first time doing something like this, we were prepared as we could have been, but still nervous. And I just remember we walk in and they were like, okay, Katie Lou Samuelson's your first interview. And she just walks over, and I've been watching her since she was at UConn. I was a fan of her sister at Stanford. And I went in and asked the first few questions, and my hand was just shaking with the paper in hand. And it got easier as the day went on, but that's just an idea of when Carolyn says we're fans first. I was like, I am 1 foot away from this person that I've watched and have been a fan of, and got to meet all the players pretty much that were there. And it was just, to Carolyn's point, a surreal experience. I mean, my favorite player pretty much ever besides Candace Parker is Skylar Diggins. And she was there meeting her and talking to her, and just seeing, at the end of the day, these players are people and they really are generous with their time. And to get that experience and get to meet them and kind of see that they are actually as cool as you think they would be was also a very nice experience. And just being on the practice floor with them. One thing I didn't mention earlier is I used to coach college basketball as well, where I played. I was a grad assistant for a few years. And that's at the Division III level. And then to be on the floor with WNBA players was just a moment that I just couldn't believe was happening. So it was a very, very cool experience.
That had to be awesome. You mentioned that they seem very generous with your time. Something that I've worked in men's leagues. I work in a women's league now. And something that I always compare and talk about the difference is how the athletes, what type of time do they give media? Oh, how it's great to hear that they were generous with their time for you. Do you feel like that is something that women have to do as the female athlete in the leagues that are still trying to grow? I know that you mentioned this was your first kind of big media opportunity, but it's just interesting to think about that. How did you think the athletes took to you being female media members wanting to cover them?
So we talked about this a little bit when we covered Unrivaled, but we were like, yeah, they need to be generous with their time, because that's the expectation of women in general, that women are generous and they're kind. And so there is that double-edged sword. And I want to acknowledge that, because I think why women are so successful and why we're seeing them skyrocket is because they do all the extra things. Like, they build up their social media and they take extra time and they form relationships. And so I wish it was a little bit less than that. We're thankful as fans it was like that, but we're also like, the men don't have to do this. They don't have to take all the time in the world to anybody who comes up to them. And that's really what they did. I will say, when we introduced ourselves as partners together, wives, and as fans first, they were so excited, because I do also think a lot of women get media people who attend their games and don't know a lot about them, or will mispronounce their name, or will not know their stats. And with us, you're not going to get that because we're way too nervous. We're going to get kicked out. So we're always going to make sure we're saying your name right and that we have you have your stats down. So there is that piece too that I wish women didn't have to do so much of. But I also am seeing now with this rise in women's sports that it's what makes them extra successful is because they do also have that marketing strategy in the back of their head that they're constantly moving.
It's a very valid point. And the perspective is just, that's what blows my mind. I'm just like, I've seen both sides. And again, wish it didn't have to be that way. But the fact that women, female athletes, just, they have a lot on their shoulders. They're expected to do all of it and look beautiful and do all the things, right? But
and take care of their kids on top of it.
Find a way. Yeah. No, it's insane. Something else that I have noticed, again, that if you've been like living under a rock, maybe you don't know this rise in women's sports, but it's everywhere, which is so cool. And what I'm starting to see is collaborations between leagues and big sponsors that are typically in the male world are pulling in the women's side, which is so cool. Something we have in Kansas City, and I know you guys do too, is the first bar that is dedicated and prioritizing women's sports to be on all of their televisions. Ours is opening very soon, but you all in Denver have the 99ers. And so, first of all, I love the name. I am a soccer player, so the 99ers mean everything to me. But tell us a little bit about your collaboration and kind of partnership. Is it, I don't know if it's a partnership, but how you have worked together with them and maybe how that's mutually beneficial for both of you guys.
Yeah. So when we first did our interview with the 99ers, we actually didn't know them very well. We were just so excited that a women's sports bar was opening and we've got to know them more and more. And the owners, Annie and Miranda, do such a great job and are continuing to do such a great job here in Denver. And so Danielle plays in their football leagues that they run. Annie and Miranda also run a football league. So we have this collaboration. And then on top of that, we do a run club each week at the 99ers, which is great. And so they're allowing us to come in and give some discounts to the people who run. And they get the discount if they listen to our podcast. So that collaboration has been so great. And then we also have this really great partnership with the women's basketball club in Denver. And they are run by Dia and Lindsay. And so we're all working together really, really well, and we're doing something here. And so Dia and Lindsay knew that there were some WNBA players coming into town for a camp. And so they were like, all right, we're going to get the WNBA players to come to the 99ers. The 99ers said they would host. Carolyn and Danielle, will you do the interview with them? And so we're all working together in this really collaborative way. And I think the goal is very simple, and it's like bring more women's sports to Denver, make this an environment where people want to watch women's sports and or make an environment where people can talk about women's sports more. And with that clear goal, we just work together in a way that I think is mutually beneficial for all of us and definitely for us.
And that's what women's sports is about, right? Like finding groups to collaborate. And then next thing you know, your network is doubling and tripling because what I've learned is the one thing, any sport, whatever it is, if people finally have access to watching it or attending it or whatever it is, learning about it, they become hooked, right? And so it's just like getting that exposure, which is so cool. In regard to that, NWSL is coming to Denver. So you mentioned, just like the Women's Soccer Network in Denver. Professional women's soccer is going. So talk to us about the women's sports scene in Denver. Are the fans all women or is it a mix? What is the fan base like there?
Yeah, it's interesting. This isn't specific to soccer, but I can speak to two experiences this past year that we've seen. One being when the PWHL came and did a game when they were doing a tour. They came to Denver and there were over 14,000 fans at that game. And we saw a bunch of men and women. So like that, to see that live and in person and the excitement around that was amazing. And then we recently went to the Denver Onyx rugby match and same thing. It was a lot of men and women there supporting. And so when we heard about the NWSL, we knew we were ready. Like we knew this city was ready for a team. And since then, I would say there's a mix of fans, right? Like last year when the U.S. women's national team came to Denver, we went and tailgated outside there and saw a bunch of fans. And I know this year there were a ton of people at the game as well. So I think overall, and Denver being a sports city in general, everyone's just itching for the NWSL to get here. Like, we are beyond ready.
And what I'll also say that I think is very cool about Denver specifically as a city is that at all the sporting events, there are so many families and like families that look like all different shapes and sizes and genders, but there are a ton of families. And I think Denver does a really, really good job of inviting families in. And so I'm very excited for that piece as well, because I know, well, the other thing that I want to mention is that the queer community here in Denver is amazing. And I think they do a really good job of showing up for their sports teams as well. And I think we're seeing this, especially with the Valkyries, whose shirt I have on today. They're leaning into their LGBTQ supporters and they're seeing the payoff in that. And so I hope that other teams are taking note of how to attract and keep fans and to lean into the fan base that has been there from the very beginning. But I do think Denver is ready. And in the 99ers, I would say, you know, there's mostly women, but there are always men in there. And so I just love to see that. And we really, within our podcast, we know that women's sports is growing. And so we're like, how can we call people in, whether they've never watched women's sports before, whether they're men who are just getting into it, like how can we call them in and have them like welcome, and here's the history, and let's go root for the Denver NWSL team, which we don't know what their name is yet, but we're so excited.
No, I love that. I think that's fantastic. And it sounds like Denver, I mean, I know from my time visiting and just watching how they have welcomed women's sports, like it definitely feels like you kind of said it, like they lean into either underrepresented communities or even just, you mentioned it with families, like that's generations of women's sports fans, right? And so I feel like that is going to be, what I love is I'm in Kansas City, obviously, and the amazing facilities we have here with our NWSL team. Denver is doing the exact same thing, investing the same amount of money. There's going to be generations born that only know those amazing facilities for women. And so for me, that's where I'm just like, oh, this is the change. This is happening, which is so great. But I do think that it's going to take more than just the facilities, more than a women's sports bar. Like, I genuinely think it's going to take people like you rallying together groups, bringing them into this space, making them feel welcome, whether they're a casual fan or very educated. But in regard to leveling out the media coverage, that's something that I always am curious about. I think it's imperative. Clearly, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, like you guys are too. How do you feel like that progress is going in regard to getting more eyes and ears and programming and all the things in regard to covering women's sports?
I can take a stab at this one just from our experience. We went as media to the women's Final Four this past year in April, and we heard multiple times that was like the most media they've seen at a Final Four ever for women. And I will say, so very different experience at Unrivaled. It was like us and two other people, so not a lot of media coverage. But at the women's Final Four, which college sports, I don't know, it's a whole different literally ball game when it comes to that. But when we were media for that, it truly was incredible how many people were there. But I still know there's a ton of room for growth, and I don't know how to combat that. So I will say it is getting there. And one quote I remember, we were in a post-practice conference and Gino Ariema, the UConn coach, was talking, and he made a comment in the room like, this is the most women I have seen from media perspective in this room. And he was like, good for you all. Keep doing what you're doing. And just for him, who obviously has been coaching forever and has seen so many years of Final Fours that probably did not have that same demographic in the room, that was a very cool moment for me to hear him say that and just know that it is growing in certain spaces.
It's definitely growing, and I'm always monitoring. I'm always looking at the ESPN headlines, and I'm like, okay, how like the headlines on ESPN are dominated by men's sports. And then when there are women's sports, I'm looking at what they're saying. And I do think there's a lot of room for growth there. There have been so many interesting things happening in the WNBA, for example, with trades and free agency and this upcoming CBA. And I still only continue to see the same story over and over again. And so I would love to see more diversity in the media coverage. We know that if you put on women's sports, if you give them some primetime coverage people are going to watch. We see that time and time again. And we were talking about the French Open, and the French Open wasn't showing any primetime women's matches. And it was so upsetting because people want to watch, and they're making it very difficult to do so. But we know that if you put women's sports on, people are going to watch. And so I think if you make sure that you're including headlines that cover the diversity of women's sports, people are going to click on those just as much. But if you only tell the same story over and over again, that's what people are going to repeat. So that's what we really try to do at Women's Sports Weekly, is tell you the full story and all the other things that are happening in women's sports besides maybe just the top story on ESPN.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like other things that you should know about that if you knew, I bet you cared about them. Yeah, I think that's incredible. In regard to that, in the content that you all bring, what are some of your goals that are coming up? Like, what do you hope to continue to bring, or are you striving to reach a certain goal at all?
We have lots of goals. We write them all down. Some of them we've met so far this year, but we do have tons of personal goals for our own growth. We would love to see, obviously, Women's Sports Weekly grow as a podcast, but honestly, what I would want, like the growth that I want to see is mostly in like how our women athletes are treated, and then like how much money can be in women's sports. Like I'd love to see that piece grow as well. And then hopefully we'll benefit from that somewhere down the line. But like I'd love to see the treatment of the players improve. And then I think everything kind of rises with that. And I would also love to see some more dedication. But for us personally, do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, I think obviously what you said about the players getting better treatment and what they deserve. But for us personally, I would say just continue to grow the podcast, reach more people, and hopefully more people will listen, and just continue to invite people in, like I said, regardless of where they're at in their women's sports journey and what they are watching. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah. I always love when, there's either a podcast or whatever it is, an interview about a player either that I don't know very well or that I just didn't know a lot about. And I listen and I'm like, man, like, why have I not been following her? Like, her journey's incredible. And then, then I'm just hooked on to another player or another team. And it's just so important. And to your guys' point, like, it's not going to happen overnight. You just have to like steadily put out the information and hope that people come in and listen. And every time I've listened to you guys, it's always been like, oh, wow, this is great. It's information you need to know. It's like quick and highlights. It's awesome. But I also think it's cool that you bring the perspectives that you do. Casual fan, athletes, but passionate. I think it's awesome. Yeah.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. I do want to, before we sneak away here, I do want to make sure that everyone listening can understand how and when and where to listen to Women's Sports Weekly. So give us all the goods. Where can we follow and subscribe and listen to you guys?
So we release every Wednesday the Women's Sports Weekly podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. I think we're there. And if we're not, let us know and we'll make sure to get there. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod, on TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. And you can also send us an email at WomensSportsWeeklyPod@gmail.com if you'd like to be part of our listener experience zone or anything else you may want to reach out to us about.
Definitely do it. I am one who has. I like you guys said, I have the shirt. I can't believe I didn't wear it, but that's okay. But no, I think it's all about supporting and listening and learning and doing all the things. So this has been so fun. I'm super grateful that we were able to connect and share a little bit about what we all love, which is elevating the game, elevating the athletes, elevating the women. So really excited about this. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you do. I mean, this is amazing. We love to follow you and see what's going on in Kansas City and beyond, and just love to be part of this growing network of women talking about women's sports. It's amazing. It's an amazing community to be part of.
I could not agree with you more. And thank you so much for being a part of it with me. I'm grateful for that. If you have some fun things that you want to shout out that are coming up, anything that you can tell us about, or should we just stay tuned and keep following?
I mean, obviously stay tuned and keep following, but we are going to do a personal interview with my sister coming, which she has a background in coaching and college softball as well. But people really tend to love when we talk personal stuff. So we're going to get into a little bit of personal stuff while also talking about what it's like to be a coach. So that's what's coming up in a couple weeks here.
No, that's so important. We need more female coaches in every sport. So that's amazing. And you got to give the people what they want. Well, Danielle and Carolyn, thank you so much for joining. Of course, they are hosts of Women's Sports Weekly. Check out their podcast on all the places. All of them, literally. Instagram, YouTube, all the places. And hey, if you enjoyed this conversation, tell a friend. Tell a friend to follow Sports and Shenanigans, to follow Women's Sports Weekly podcast. This is how we will continue to grow the women's sports fan base. So that is it for today. Again, Danielle, Carolyn, thank you so much. This has been Sports and Shenanigans. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you.